In 2008, the United States Defense Intelligence Agency launched a classified investigation into a 512-acre cattle ranch in Utah. They spent $22 million. They sent PhD scientists, military veterans, and intelligence analysts. They classified the results. They have never said what they found. This is fact or fiction. AI verdict. You already know the broad strokes: the Sherman family, the cattle mutilations, the lights in the sky, the History Channel show. What most coverage never properly addresses is the specific question that sits underneath all of it. Not whether strange things happen at Skinwalker Ranch, but why the most sophisticated intelligence apparatus on the planet investigated it for years, classified everything they found, and then went silent. That silence is not nothing. Governments do not spend $22 million and classify the results because nothing happened. By the end of this video, you are going to have the specific details most Skinwalker Ranch coverage completely ignores. The classified government program that nobody talks about properly. The radiation paradox that qualified scientists cannot explain. And the detail about what happens to investigators after they leave the ranch that is the most unsettling thing in this entire story. The AI is going to deliver a verdict on all of it, and unlike most verdicts on this topic, it is going to be honest about what the evidence actually demands, rather than what makes the best television. Let us start not with the Sherman family or the History Channel show, but with the detail that almost nobody covers properly. In 2007, ADIA rocket scientist and career intelligence analyst named Dr. James Lakatsky read a book about Skinwalker Ranch. He visited the property, and something happened during that visit that he has never fully described publicly, but was significant enough that he went back to the Defense Intelligence Agency and convinced senior officials that this 512-acre cattle ranch in Utah represented a potential national security concern. That single fact is worth sitting with. A career intelligence professional with decades of experience at the DIA visited a ranch in Utah and came back convinced it needed a classified government investigation. Not a curious interest, a national security concern. The result was AAWSAP, the Advanced Aerospace Weapon System Applications Program. Officially launched in 2008 and funded with $22 million, approved by Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, alongside Republican Senator Ted Stevens and Democratic Senator Daniel Inouye. The classified contract went to a subsidiary of Robert Bigelow's aerospace company, which already owned the ranch. For 2 years, government scientists operated out of a dedicated command center on the property with a team of 75 people. What they documented has never been fully released. A large portion of the data produced by AAWSAP remains classified to this day. But here is what we do know from the parts that have been cleared for public release. The radiation paradox is the detail that stops skeptics cold. Environmental testing by qualified contractors has consistently found no radioactive material in the soil or on the property. Yet investigators have documented repeated bursts of ionizing radiation, strong enough to cause nausea, skin irritation, and cognitive fog in personnel on site. Radiation spikes with no radioactive source. That is not anecdote. That is a measurement problem that conventional science has not explained. The electromagnetic anomalies follow the same pattern. GPS systems fail in specific locations on the property. Equipment malfunctions at critical moments. Wires have been found physically shredded. Electronic devices have been destroyed in ways inconsistent with any known interference source. The drone and aerial footage is where the modern investigation gets genuinely interesting. When investigators fly equipment above a specific area of the property, they consistently detect anomalies in the airspace above the ranch that are not present at ground level. Objects tracked on multiple sensors simultaneously. Signal interference that appears at altitude and disappears at ground level. Whatever is detectable above that property is not detectable on the ground beneath it. That asymmetry is strange, but it is also consistent across multiple investigations by different teams over years. Keep all of that in mind, because when the AI feeds everything into the analysis in a moment, the verdict it produces is not the one most people would predict. And there is one more detail we need to cover first that most coverage treats as entertainment, but is actually the most operationally significant thing in this entire story. The honest skeptical case here is stronger than the believers want to admit, and we're going to give it a proper hearing. Start with the most inconvenient fact. The Myers family owned this property from 1934 to 1994, 60 years. They raised cattle, lived on the land, and reported nothing unusual, not one cattle mutilation, not one UFO, not one electromagnetic anomaly. The phenomena did not begin until the Shermans arrived in 1994, and significantly, most of the original experiences centered specifically on Terry Sherman, rather than the wider family. When Bigelow bought the property and assembled his scientific team, the phenomena continued, but crucially, their equipment would malfunction at critical moments. Researchers noted that the phenomena appeared to be camera-shy, with critical technology failing precisely when something was happening. Colm Kelleher, who was part of the NIDS investigation and co-authored the primary book on the subject, admitted directly, after several years of focused investigation, they managed to obtain very little physical evidence that could be considered conclusive proof of anything. The $22 million government program sounds compelling until you examine what it actually produced. Ufologist Barry Greenwood, writing in the peer-reviewed Journal of Scientific Exploration, criticized AAWSAP for lacking any documentary evidence from the ranch, despite decades of exploration. The program ran for 2 years before being wound down when funding ran out. If the DIA had found something definitive, that outcome seems unlikely. The History Channel show is entertainment. That is not a criticism, it is simply a fact about the format. The show has a financial incentive to find anomalies, and the editing is designed to create maximum drama. 6 seasons of television have produced no definitive physical evidence of anything anomalous. And the skeptical argument has one more dimension worth considering. Every owner since Bigelow has had a significant financial interest in the phenomena continuing to be reported. That does not prove the phenomena are fabricated, but it is a conflict of interest that serious analysis cannot ignore. But here is where the skeptical case runs into a specific problem it cannot fully explain away. There is something in the Skinwalker Ranch story that sits between true believer and complete skeptic. And it is the most uncomfortable detail in the entire case. It is called the Hitchhiker effect. This is not a paranormal claim from a rancher or a television show. This is a term used in operational intelligence reports from the AAWSAP program to describe what happened to investigators after they left the ranch. At least 5 highly experienced intelligence officers who visited the property experienced it. In the weeks and months that followed their visits, they reported what AAWSAP investigators formally classified as anomalous activity in their own homes. Shadowy figures, poltergeist activity, glowing orbs, unexplained equipment failures. In some cases, the activity was severe enough to traumatize family members who had never visited the ranch and had no prior interest in the subject. One case involved physical evidence. An investigator returned to his home on the East Coast and reported that his entire family was experiencing anomalous events, including what they described as a wolf-like creature near their property. Physical evidence was found. Deep scratch marks on a tree. Dr. Lakatsky's own assessment was direct. Whatever was producing this effect, it was not staying at the ranch. This is documented in classified intelligence reports written by career military and intelligence professionals whose job was specifically to distinguish between genuine anomalies and wishful thinking. Career military and intelligence professionals do not include fabricated phenomena in classified reports. The personal and professional consequences of doing so are severe. Whatever they documented was real enough to write down in a classified government file. Dr. Lakatsky himself described a personal experience during his first visit to the ranch that he has never fully disclosed publicly. Whatever he witnessed was enough to convince him to design and fund the largest government UFO investigation in American history. The question the skeptical case cannot answer is this: If nothing genuine was happening at Skinwalker Ranch, why does the Hitchhiker effect appear in classified government documents written by people with no commercial interest in the phenomena? Why did a career DIA analyst with decades of intelligence experience come back from a ranch visit and spend 2 years of his professional life and $22 million of government money investigating it? And why do the full results remain classified? Classified silence is not proof of anything extraordinary, but it is not nothing either. Everything you have just heard goes into the analysis. The radiation paradox, the electromagnetic data, the AAWSAP program and its classified results, the Hitchhiker effect in government documents, the 60 years of silence from the Myers family, all of it weighed together. The verdict is not what most people would predict. Time for the AI verdict.
Let us examine what the evidence actually demands. I want to start with something most analyses of Skinwalker Ranch avoid saying directly. The question is not whether strange things happen there. The electromagnetic anomalies, the radiation spikes with no identifiable source, the GPS failures in specific locations. These have been documented by qualified scientists with calibrated equipment over multiple decades. That data exists. It is real. The question is what it means. And that question is genuinely harder than either side of this debate wants to admit. The skeptical case is correct that 60 years of the Myers family on the same property without incident is a significant problem for the haunted land theory. If the property itself were the source of anomalous phenomena, the Myers family would have experienced them. They did not. That suggests whatever is happening is either intermittent in ways that defy simple explanation or connected to something that changed after 1994. The skeptical case is also correct that the History Channel show is entertainment and should be treated as such. Television drama is not scientific evidence, but the skeptical case cannot explain the AAWSAP program. A $22 million classified DIA investigation is not launched because a scientist had an interesting afternoon on a ranch in Utah. It is launched because something crossed a threshold of concern significant enough to justify black budget funding and congressional approval from 3 senior United States senators. The full results of that investigation remain classified. That is a fact. And it is a fact the skeptical case has no satisfactory answer for. The Hitchhiker effect is the detail I find hardest to dismiss. Not because poltergeist activity in investigators' homes is inherently credible, but because it appears in operational intelligence documents written by people whose professional function was specifically to separate signal from noise. At least 5 career intelligence officers documented it. One case produced physical evidence examined by Lakatsky himself. Whatever they documented was real enough to write down in a classified government file and real enough for the program director to describe publicly. Now here is my probability assessment. And I want to be clear about something important before I give it. These probabilities are not mutually exclusive. Several of them can be simultaneously true. I am not identifying a single correct explanation. I am identifying what the evidence makes possible and how likely each possibility is given what we know. Probability that the phenomena have a natural but currently unknown geological or atmospheric explanation, 40%. The Uinta Basin has unusual geology, and the possibility that natural processes are generating measurable anomalies that are being misinterpreted cannot be ruled out. Probability that commercial interests and confirmation bias account for a significant portion of reported phenomena, 50%. Every owner since 1996 has had financial incentive to find anomalies. That does not explain the government data, but it almost certainly explains some of what gets reported. Probability that something genuinely anomalous is occurring at this location that conventional science cannot currently explain, 65%. The electromagnetic and radiation data is too consistent across too many independent investigators over too many years to dismiss entirely. Probability that the phenomena have extraterrestrial or non-human origin, 15%. The evidence does not support this conclusion directly, but the classified government interest and the specific nature of some documented anomalies mean it cannot be entirely eliminated. The most likely reality is that Skinwalker Ranch involves a combination of genuine but poorly understood physical anomalies, significant commercial amplification of those anomalies, and a classified government investigation whose results would likely reframe the entire conversation if they were ever made public. Here is my final assessment. Skinwalker Ranch is not what the believers say it is. The evidence for portals, shape-shifting creatures, and extraterrestrial visitation is not there in any form that survives serious scrutiny. But it is also not what the skeptics say it is. Something measurable is happening on that property that qualified scientists with proper equipment have been unable to fully explain across 3 decades of investigation. The government knows this. The $22 million classified program is their acknowledgement of it. The most honest verdict is this: something real is occurring at Skinwalker Ranch. What that something is remains genuinely unknown. And the only people who might have the answer are the ones who classified it.
We said at the start that the most significant detail was not what happened on the ranch. It was what the government found and chose not to tell us. 3 decades, 4 owners, $22 million. And the most important files are still classified. If you want to know what the AI concluded about the UAP files the US government has been forced to release, and what they are still choosing to withhold, that video is coming on the channel. Subscribe for the next verdict. Thanks for watching.